Welcome back to Call of the Father. This will be episode number 11. If you've been listening, you probably noticed I don't have any intro music. I don't have any outro music. There's no ads. I didn't want to put ads. I don't think that it's worth it. For now. I just want people to be able to listen and not have any interruptions. And I appreciate you following. As far as the music, it just didn't come together, and maybe I'll add some at some point. But for now, I just thought, I'm just going to put this out. And it's been fun for me, and it's not easy every week to put a message together when I've mentioned getting into that heart space, and this week was no different. I've had a lot of life things on my mind, so as you know, I'm doing the best I can just to get messages out for you, and I appreciate you listening, and I want to help you, so bear with me. This will get better. I'm going to get better at this as I go, but it takes time. For now, I'm just putting out what's on my heart when I feel it. So today on the way home from work, I was talking to a good buddy, and man, this guy was kind of a rock for me going through my divorce, and he helped me keep my head straight when I was so conditioned to accept gaslighting, because I basically I wasn't under a lot of gaslighting in my marriage, and I believe what happens is you learn to start gaslighting yourself. So when everything kind of blew up and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, I kept trying to, in my mind, reason through things, in a way, put justice to what was going on and make it somehow my fault, because maybe I could accept that. And that wasn't the case. This guy really helped me keep my head straight. And I have so much love and respect for him. And what turned out, I could probably never repay the way that he was there for me, but I've had my opportunities to be there for him as well. And in the end, basically, I think why he resonated with what was going on with me is because he grew up with a very, very narcissistic mother, and there were some things there that it was hard for me to see at the time, but then much later, after the fact, as I learned about codependency from Lisa Romano and some other sources, and I shared them with him, then he started going to counseling, and at one point he realized he was codependent also. I just didn't see it. It manifested a little different for him, and I just thought he was really confident, and there are things that I guess I didn't see him the same way I saw myself. Anyway, tonight on the way home, talking to him, we were talking about some scenarios with his parents and how he'd set boundaries with his mother and his dad, who I kind of believe is kind of a flying monkey in that situation. And I was really impressed. I was like, man, bud, you inspire me, because it's not that easy setting boundaries, but man, you make it sound so easy, and you're so confident about it. Anyway, I kind of want to tell a story about how hard it was for me to set boundaries my whole life, because I feared reaction. I feared anger. I feared just somebody being pissed off at me. And if you set a boundary, a lot of times with certain personality types or traits that, narcissistic traits, there's going to be a reaction. And a lot of that goes back to my dad and his yelling and his anger. The yelling that I would endure when he'd get pissed off at me, it was unbearable. I did not like to be yelled at. And looking back now, I can see, even when I was in the Army, and I remember getting yelled at, and man, it would make me freeze up in certain ways, that panic inside, and trying not to let anybody know how much I was panicking and show that I was in control. Well, all of this, I mean, it just kept happening in so many situations in my life. And it was very hard to set boundaries because if you're dealing with someone that operates this way with narcissistic tendencies, they know basically that they got you by the balls there. They know how it affects you. They see it and they know. So sometimes I would just put up with it. There'd be a little dialogue in my head maybe where I'm deciding whether it's worth saying anything or setting a boundary or doing anything about it or not. And a lot of times as a codependent, I think you put up with crap because you'd rather put up with the abuse than deal with the other abuse, the yelling, their reaction is worse than whatever abuse you're enduring in the situation. Anyway, so when she'd come in the house right after the divorce, I said something. I did text her and I said, we're not on the kind of terms where you're welcome to just come in my house when I'm not there. Because I bought her out of the house and it was final. Everything was final. I'd let her take pretty much whatever she wanted during the divorce, and I figured I could replace it. And we agreed on a lot of things, but there were a lot of little things. I just take it if you want it. But after the fact, it's like, no, you can't. This isn't an open invitation forever. I have to have my own separate life at some point. And so I texted her and I said that. I said, we're not on those kind of terms. And basically she came back, changing the subject to gaslight me, make me feel bad about something else. And I can't believe what horrible shape the house is in and the yard. Well, I gave her the lawnmower in the divorce, so I hadn't replaced the lawnmower yet and I hadn't mowed the lawn. No big deal. But the inside, actually, that was just not true. The house was in better shape than it ever was when she was there. Anyway, that doesn't matter. That's what it was gaslighting. And I basically just said, none of your business. If this happens again, I'll take legal action. And that was the end of that for then. And it felt good to set that boundary. But lo and behold, a year later, she comes to get the kids. And I had started to put up ring cameras around my house. And I put the first one up by the front door. That was the only one that I'd put up yet. And she came in the house. And the kids, it's not their job to keep her from doing that. And it was my boundary to set. But she felt like she could walk on me, and that's the way that it had always been. That's, as a codependent, that's what you teach people. You teach people that you don't have boundaries and they can walk on you. And you basically attract that kind of mistreatment. And if I can be accountable now and fair, I say this with gentleness in a way that I accept it, and I'm not mad at myself. It's not as judgmental as it sounds, but I was a coward. And that was something I put on an image of not being a coward. Never wanted to be that. I mentioned this in, I think, the second episode. But a lot of codependency and lack of boundaries, I mean, there's no other way to chalk it up but cowardly. But you don't know what you don't know. You can't see what you can't see. And it's valid. There's room for some compassion for yourself as you learn this and heal and grow from it. I can look back with compassion, but I don't have a problem setting those boundaries now. A lot of things have changed since then, and before things even changed, it takes work to work through these things and gain boundaries, gain the ability to set boundaries. Man, to say anything to her or have, even after the divorce, which is freaking crazy, but even a year after the divorce was finalized, I still was dealing with things with boundaries. It was really hard for me to draw a hard line when she came in and violated my boundaries. I felt violated. And it was still, man, the knots in my stomach over it. I felt very violated, but I was very afraid of just rocking the boat. I was afraid of that. And so I talked to this same buddy that I was talking to tonight. And anyway, she'd come in the house and I had her on the Ring camera going out of the house with her arms full of some things. I don't even know what it was to this day. I'm not too worried about it now, but she's going down the stairs and then she hears the Ring chime that it was activated, and she stops on the stairs and looks up, looks around, and spots the camera, and her mouth kind of opened, and then she like scurried down the stairs. And it was pretty humorous to watch, but at the same time, to do anything about it, man, my stomach was in knots. And talking to this buddy, he's like, "You have to call the police. You have to do something about it. Otherwise, this will keep happening forever." And he was right. And it took some time for me to get to that point. But finally, it took a couple days. But the bother didn't go away. It kept bothering me. And I was like, I had to kind of pump myself up to set this boundary. And so I called the town cop and I asked him, I said, I don't, and I regretted this later. I don't now, but I regretted not pressing charges. I felt like I should have, like there are a couple things, I mean, a few months down the road that, oh, they pissed me off. Some things she did or said, I don't even remember what now, but I had wished that I had pressed charges. But then, anyway, I called the police and I told them I don't want to press charges, but would you mind calling her and just rattling her cage? And he's like, sure, I got no problem with that. So he calls her, tells her, yeah, this is a class 5 criminal trespass felony, whatever he said. And man, then of course I got the reaction that I dreaded, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. I built myself up to that. I did have anxiety over it. I got this text with flying F words, and it was pretty bad, but I just completely ignored it. And I had warned her a year before, and I basically drew the line where I said my boundary was. She didn't believe me, didn't honor that, and I drew the boundary. And anyway, things got easier from there as you set those lines and draw those boundaries, man, it gets easier. And the first few, I guess that's the lesson that I can tell you. If you're going through anything like that, it gets easier. Man, just stick with it, set those lines and trust the process and know that it does get easier, no question. And now it's to the point, I feel no anxiety over anything. And really, I feel like she doesn't even try to test much anymore. It's just, things are fairly pleasant. And, but I'm always prepared. And if she wants to test the waters, I'm ready to set boundaries. I'm ready to put up the wall. I'm not afraid of that anymore. Anyway, another area of my life where I learned to set boundaries, this goes through almost every relationship and interaction in my life, this cowardice and lack of boundaries. And I was at work, and a manager kind of jumped all over me and my work partner one day over something that he kind of came at us. Anyway, I didn't put up with it. I said, "Whoa, I'm not okay with the way you're talking to me right now." And he was the high up manager. Said, "I'm not okay with the way you're talking to me right now." And he kind of was taken back a little bit. And I guess I probably still put off whatever vibe that told him he could shit all over me. But I drew the line. And I think your body language, so many things improve as you draw these lines. But I said no. He said, "What?" I said, "No." And anyway, I was like, "No, you can't talk to me like that. I'm not okay with this." And he goes, "Well, you did this and this." And I said, "Well, hold on. You're coming at me like I did something with malicious intent, and I did not. I understand that you don't like this result and what it was, but you're coming at me like I had malicious intent, and I'm telling you I did not." And I actually have to give him a lot of credit. He apologized, and I respected that. And so I was willing to just let it go and forget it from there, basically. Like, I really respect that he took ownership and accountability, and he apologized. And I fixed what he didn't like, and then we moved on. And lo and behold, 3 or 4 months later, I get moved within the organization, and he is now my boss's boss. And I was kind of like, well, I wasn't afraid. I was kind of like, I am who I am. And I built enough esteem and confidence, and I wasn't wrong. And it wasn't that he was wrong and I was right. It just was, the situation was what it was, and I drew a boundary, and it was the right thing to do. Well, now he's my boss's boss, and I worked under him for several months. And basically, during that time, he praised me a lot for the work that I was doing, and he wasn't expecting what he got out of me. And he said, "I have to compliment you," several times. And I really respected that and appreciated it. And I did try to put in good work for him. And anyway, I feel like by setting that boundary, he respected me. And I respected myself more. And when you respect yourself more, people pick up on that. And that respect just snowballs. It goes both ways. When people respect you, you respect them back too. And anyway, it just built a much healthier situation for me than a lot of situations I've been in life. I think a lot of times I was always fighting for respect. I act like the common, rather than common, I should say the typical codependent. I'd have that typical codependent behavior where I'm going to supplicate to you, and I'm going to make you like me by just kissing your butt and being just a kind of a little wimp. I'm going to be the nicest guy, and I'm going to kiss your butt, and hopefully you'll like me. Well, really, I think most times that doesn't work. They don't like you, or at least they don't respect you. They may play in and be like, "Okay, I got this person under wraps. They're under my thumb, so I can act nice back." They buy it. They think their tactic worked, and really I can shit on them. I can mistreat them, and I got the upper hand. That's probably happened a lot to me. The other thing that I think I've seen is I've seen some situations in my life where I think people didn't buy it. They saw right through my crap, and it kind of rubbed them wrong. They saw the manipulation for what it was, and they reacted. And then I get mad because I'm being this super nice guy, and then they do something extremely rude, pretty blatantly on purpose toward me, and I'm thinking, I'm nice and you're going to disrespect me like that, and I get all mad, and then it's kind of a blow up where, well, now I'm going to show my teeth and prove myself to you. And I think they just called BS. They saw the manipulation for what it was. And really, I learned that was hard to take when I learned that from Lisa Romano, that a lot of codependent behavior is manipulative. Uh, it's just true. It's hard to take, but it's true. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, hurtful but true. And I got to see how I can fix this. Anyway, so another area of setting boundaries that I want to discuss and bring up is, I'm trying to grow and be the man that I want to be and the man that my family deserves, my kids. If there's another woman for me at some point, I'm trying to grow to be what would be good for her too, and she can respect, because I never felt respected before, and I could see why. And maybe, to be fair, maybe I didn't deserve much respect in the situation the way I was before, and the unhealed version of myself. So I'm trying to grow into that. And one of the other areas that I see to set boundaries is for the protection of my family, for the protection of my kids. We went down to this restaurant by my house one night, me and my kids, and we'll go down there. It's a bar by night, restaurant by day. And so there's a pool table in there, and I was like, hey guys, why don't we go down and get dinner? And my son, he wanted to play pool. And he doesn't really know how he wanted to play pool, and he's been wanting to learn. He's interested in it. So I was like, all right, yeah, that's fine. And so we go down there, and he's playing pool. Him and his friend showed up, and that lives in town here. And anyway, they're playing pool. I'm sitting there talking to another friend came by, a friend of mine, and we're talking, and this guy came along. I kind of saw him come in and go over near the pool table, and I was kind of watching, but I wasn't probably paying close enough attention. And after a little while, I'm distracted, and my son comes over, and he's kind of upset. The guy came and basically just pushed them off the table in the middle of their game, and I didn't say anything. I was kind of taken back by the situation. And again, I want to bring up, this is cowardly. A codependent has so many programs where they're afraid to rock the boat. They're afraid to make a scene, or they're afraid to stand up in certain situations. It's easier to take it than to make a scene out of it, or feel the reaction when they do stand up. That's me. And so, there's still working on it. And this situation, I just didn't see it coming, so I wasn't prepared. I'm a big believer and advocate for premeditated, what's the best way to put it? Premeditated experiences where you've already thought through a possible scenario of a situation or a struggle, and know how you're going to handle it. Know ahead how you're going to handle it, and then you will. Anyway, and I put this in use in my life a lot of times, but I didn't do it with this. I didn't see that situation brewing. I didn't foresee it, and I wasn't prepared, and I was kind of taken back. And this guy, the way that he treated them was like they were less than. And that's what my son said that night. We talked about it later, and he's like, it was like we're less than him. And that really bothered me that night and the next day, to a point where I got mad about it. And I started thinking about it, and I wanted to go find that guy and let him know, look, don't fricking do that again. Now I'm all fired up. Now I'm ready to stand up. It would have been so much easier. It might not have been comfortable, but it would have been easier to handle the situation then. And as I thought about it and thought how it was, I could have. even though I wasn't prepared, I still could have handled the situation then and not let somebody be disrespectful to my son. My son's not less than him because he's an adult. I've been over this before. Talked about it in a previous episode. There's a lot of situations I don't buy the programming or the societal belief, standard, ritual, whatever it is about it. It starts with respect elders, but I think a lot of it suggests that simply by having more years and or months, days, whatever it is, that you're more important than the person with less experience. I do not believe that. I think that's wrong and evil in a lot of ways, and that's probably the best way I could put it, evil. I think that my kids deserve respect from me, from teachers, from other parents, and I need to stand up for that. Yeah, they don't have the experience. I teach them to respect people, and they do show respect, but respect doesn't mean that they're less than. And that's where the line gets blurred a little bit, I believe. Anyway, that was kind of a lesson for me, and I talked to my son the next day, and I was like, hey, buddy, I wanted to talk to you about this, and I feel like I kind of failed in this situation. I wasn't expecting this, and even what I said last night about the situation, I was wrong. I feel like I handled it wrong, and I should have stood up for you, and I'm sorry. And he said, that's okay. I may have shared this story before, but I'm also a big believer in apologizing to our kids when we realize we handled something wrong. And one time when I felt like I had handled a situation poorly or could have done better for my son, I came back to him a couple days later or whatever, and I was like, hey, bud, I feel like I handled this the wrong way, and this is why, and I'm sorry. And he looks at me and he smiles, and it was the warmest smile, and he goes, it's okay, Dad. You're going to be forgiven for a lot of things in your life. And I kind of was laughing inside and smiled, and it felt so warm, and I felt so humble, like the wisdom that came out of his mouth. And he's so much younger than me, and I'm like, how am I his dad? How am I the one supposed to be guiding or teaching him? And I feel like he's teaching me. Anyway, I think there's a lot to learn from about setting our boundaries, and it's a good thing. It's a dreaded thing in the beginning, but it's a good thing, and it'll help you grow, and it'll help you just become a better person, I believe. And I think it also helps you to respect other people's boundaries, because that's another thing. As a codependent, it's hard to respect other people's boundaries because you're so insecure. When people set boundaries as a codependent, you feel like it's a knock on you, or like it's I don't even know how to put that into words. Basically, you feel inadequate or rejected when someone sets a boundary. And that's not the case. They have a right to set a boundary, and we should respect it. Anyway, thank you for listening. As I said, I'll keep doing this. I'll do my best to put one out every week. The next few months are going to be kind of crazy with some personal situations, but I'll keep doing it. And I appreciate you listening. Tell your friends. Go ahead and follow on Apple or Spotify or YouTube if you would. I appreciate that. Give me a 5-star, and please tell your friends. Have them follow. Have a great day. I'll see you next week.